that took a chance and said, come around to the back door, and they would serve us. But we had to bring it back to the bus still. We couldn't eat it there.
Up above my head.
Up above my head.
I hear music in the air.
I hear music in the air.
Now up above my head.
Up above my
By the age of 30, Rosetta had survived 2 brief and unhappy marriages and had had numerous affairs with men and women. The only constant person in her life was still her mother, Katie Bell. However, in the spring of 1946, she encountered a young singer called Marie Knight. She was so impressed by her, she suggested they team up. And together they recorded a hugely popular version of the gospel classic, Up Above My Head.
I really do believe, yes, I really do believe there's a heaven somewhere, heaven somewhere.
One of the things that made Marie and Rosetta so special as performers is that they were 2 women who could go on the road without any accompaniment but themselves. Marie was a piano player and percussion player. Rosetta performed on the piano as well as the guitar, and so the 2 of them together had their entire band with them.
Up above my head.
Up above my head.
I hear music in the air.
I hear music in the air.
Up above my head.
Up above my head.
I hear music in the air.
I hear trouble in the air.
Up above my head. I hear music in the air.
I really do believe, yes, I really do believe there's a heaven somewhere, heaven somewhere.
Marie Knight and Sister Rosetta Tharpe were a perfect pair. The music was so wonderful that they generated together. They were so unified on a stage. Together, they could rock the house.
Back then, 2 women on the road together without any men to accompany them was not only novel, but pretty risky. But it was a risk that Rosetta was prepared to take.
They were lovers, at least according to many of their friends at the time. Within certain circles, they could probably be a little bit open about it, but obviously within the wider world, that would have ruined careers, it would have ruined reputations. But I think it was an open secret in the entertainment worlds in which they moved.
In 1950, while Rosetta and Marie were performing in California, Marie's mother and 2 small children were killed in a fire. Traumatized by the loss, Marie drifted away, leaving Rosetta to carry on alone. Their dream of independence together was over. Less than a year after breaking up with Marie, Rosetta took the most outrageous decision of her life when 2 concert promoters came up with an audacious publicity stunt. Their plan was to stage Rosetta's 3rd wedding in Washington's huge Griffith Stadium. They would sell tickets to her fans and the recording rights to Decca. Rosetta agreed to go along with the plan. But there was just one problem. She had no one in mind to marry. But just weeks before the big day, she found Russell Morrison, a minor player in the music industry who offered to be both her 3rd husband and her manager.
Tell the truth, I was surprised when she said she was getting married and Russell was going to be the groom.
So she records her wedding ceremony and a concert that follows it in 1951. 25,000 people come out and pay admission prices to attend her wedding. They bring wedding gifts for her, they bring crystal, they bring dishes for her. Someone even buys her a television set. It's a total showbiz move. And at the same time, it's a wedding ceremony conducted by a minister, a real wedding ceremony.
Rosetta was standing on the pitcher's mound, and they had everybody around her and all of the matrons of honor and all these other people who were probably folks that the promoters got together. But they were all there, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful show.
I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Griffith Stadium, where you're about to be guests at the wedding of Sister Rosetta Tharpe, after which there'll be a great spiritual concert followed by fireworks.
And it was nice to see that a lot of her friends had stuck with her and were part of the wedding party. Lucky Millinder is there, Marie Knight is there, and the Rosettes are there.
That stadium was packed.
You know, somebody said it's a fake.
It was packed. I don't see how they could get anybody else in. It was like a circus.
Rosetta, will you have this man to be thy wedded husband? To live after God's ordinance in the holy states of a matrimony?
I mean, it resonated throughout the entire country. It was in newspapers, people talked about it. My parents were so excited about it. For a month in my house before that wedding was just crazy.
Take him by his right hand, Rosetta. Hold it. I, Rosetta.
I, Rosetta.
Take thee, Russell.
Take thee, Russell.
For my wedding.
It was like she was Cinderella, you know, and Russell was Prince Charming, and it was a storybook thing.
That they are man and wife. Kiss the bride, man and wife.
I didn't go to Sister's wedding to Russell. I just figured it was another something that she had gotten herself into. After meeting Russell, I figured that he just wanted an easy living. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, she's doing it again.
Touching all these souls.
So high, can't get over him.
So low,
Can't get under him.
so high.
Can't get around him.
Sadly, the misgivings shared by Rosetta's friends proved all too accurate. While the wedding did boost her record sales briefly, Russell, the manager, was out of his depth.
Russell just, like a cool breeze, just came right in, took over.
He wasn't really a manager. He thought he was a manager. And of course, so many times when they think they are, they aren't. And that's bad.
It was very clear that he was living off her talent, and it was very clear that he was two-timing her. Many people, especially people close to her, like Marie Knight, were furious with him.
In spite of all the criticism, Rosetta remained married to Russell for the next 22 years. Meanwhile, back in the Mississippi Delta of Rosetta's childhood, young white musicians were just beginning to discover the raw energy and complex rhythms of African American gospel.
There was a hip thing happening in Memphis at that time. There was a little church, and it was cool. It was a cool thing to do on Sunday nights only. You would go there, and there would be Elvis and some of the other guys from the area, and it was unusual because back in those days, white people had to sit in the back, and it was roped off. And we would sit back there, and we would watch these black spiritual singers sing on Sunday night.
Of course, this was the music that Sister Rosetta had brought out of the church and into the wider world nearly 20 years earlier.
The thing that gospel spiritual music brought to popular music was feeling. Gospel spiritual music put the guts and the feeling and the real soul into it. And people like Elvis and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis and Carl Perkins and those guys, Buddy Holly if you will, they saw that and they adapted to that, and that really was the essence of rock and roll. Thinking about it, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, she had this great feeling, and that's what Elvis was looking for, feeling, because that's where it all came from.
She gave a lot of people ideas of how to perform. The way she performed a song, the way she picked the song, the way she presented it was an inspiration to anybody who stood around and watched her. And they all watched her.
Let's do that again.
She had a major impact on artists like Elvis Presley. When you see Elvis Presley singing early songs in his career, I think if you imagine that he is channeling Rosetta Tharpe, it's not an image that I think we're used to thinking about when we think about rock and roll history. We don't think about the black woman behind the young white man. At this point, a middle-aged black woman behind a young white man.
All the kids who grew up in the 40s and 50s knew of her as a superstar. That was the singing that all these fellows had in their ears. The rhythm they heard, the instrumentation they heard would have been the sanctified piano and the kind of guitar that they knew from Rosetta's records. And so I think it's very fair to say that there's a bit of her snuck up in all of rock and roll.
By the late 50s, rock and roll was here to stay. Its idols were young white men, not middle-aged black women. Rosetta, it seemed, was on her way out, and the bookings were drying up fast. She and Russell, along with her aging mother, were forced to move into this small row house in the city of Philadelphia.
The reason Rosetta's career went south, very simply, is that Rosetta didn't keep up with the times. Rosetta was still singing in 1954-55 the songs she had recorded in 1938. In fact, it's remarkable that she kept any career going when she had really become essentially an oldies act.
Then, in 1957, Rosetta got a call from one of her most devoted fans, a white musician in Britain. Chris Barber, the popular Dixieland-style jazz trombonist, booked her to go on tour with him and his band for a month.
We got our agent to contact her somehow, and they actually paid her to come to Britain. It was very simple. And it was marvellous working with her. She was actually unbelievably good. And we learnt, as we thought we would, enormous amount from even the first day with her, never mind the whole month's tour. Basically speaking, her guitar by itself was as loud as my entire band, and it didn't bother anybody. It was beautiful music, it was loud, it didn't matter. It was enthralling, totally enthralling. It was totally enthralling and totally convincing.
This train is a clean train, this train. I said this train is a clean train, yes, this train. You know this train is a clean train. Everybody write it in his name. And this train is a clean train. This train. This train has left this.
Booked as little more than a supporting novelty act, Sister Rosetta stole the show.
Has left the station, yes, this train.
Until now, British audiences had only seen white imitations of blues and gospel. But here, on stage, for the very first time, was the real thing. Her newfound popularity quickly caught the attention of bookers and promoters all across Europe. Sister Rosetta was a star reborn, discovering new fans. By the early 60s, her influence was continuing to spread as yet another generation fell under her spell. Here is a recording of Bob Dylan speaking about Rosetta on the radio.
Sister Rosetta Tharpe was anything but ordinary and plain. She was a big, good-looking woman and divine, not to mention sublime and splendid. She was a powerful force of nature, a guitar-playing, singing evangelist.
It's a clean train. Everybody ride it if you can.
You know, she traveled to England with Muddy Waters and a whole bunch of other blues performers in the early 60s. And I'm sure there are a lot of young English guys who picked up an electric guitar after getting a look at her.
It's standing in the station. This train is waiting on all of you. Come on and let's go. This train.
In the summer of 1964, Rosetta was booked by Granada Television to perform in a folk, blues and gospel special. The musicians were American, the audience English students, the venue a disused railway station, Chorlton-cum-Hardy, just outside Manchester.
The Manchester gig was a curiosity in the middle of the tour for us. It was kind of bizarre, but you know, we were all new to England and we were aware of all this interest in blues and gospel. We all thought it was strange, the setup with the audience on one platform and the musicians on the other. And she rose to the occasion. She loved the drama of the situation and trying to bridge that gap between the platforms and sell the whole thing across the track to the audience.
By now, Rosetta was 49 years old, and she had been on the road for more than 40 of those years. But even in cold, wet and windy England, the magic was still there.
The inimitable Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
All the sweet horsey. Oh, this is the wonderful time of my life. And the people are so sweet to stay here. And I come in on let me tell you what I come in on. Oh, yeah! Then again. Didn't it rain, children? Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes, didn't it? You know it did, didn't it? Oh, oh yes, how it rained. I said it rained, children. Rain, oh yes. Didn't it? Yes, didn't it? You know it did, didn't it? Oh my Lord, how it rained. Some at the window, some at the door, some crying, Brother Lord, can't you take on more? But no cried out, my friends. The angel's got the key and you can't get in. I know it rain, you know it rain. Rain too long, all night long. Rain all day, rain all night. Rain, 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 rain. Rain, 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 rain. Rain, children. Rain, oh yes. Didn't it, yes. Didn't it, you know it did, didn't it? Oh my Lord, how it rained!
Sister Rosetta was a huge success in the tour. I mean, she did great. Audiences loved her. She was very happy. Everybody was happy.
I love you so, my English friends, forever and ever until I leave this world.
While Rosetta was away in Europe, enjoying the upturn in her career, back in Philadelphia, her mother was becoming increasingly frail. In 1968, Katie Bell died. For 53 years, she had stuck close by her daughter, through good times and bad, as the one constant figure, reminding Rosetta of her faith in God. The loss took a heavy toll on Rosetta. She became increasingly depressed, and to make matters worse, she was diagnosed with diabetes.
I'm going to sing a song that maybe you wouldn't understand it, and maybe you do. A song that I love so dearly. And I have so many friends here in Copenhagen. For many, many years I've been coming here. And then sometime my friends...
Made in 1970 in Denmark, this is the last known recording of Sister Rosetta performing.
Maybe you wouldn't understand that, but someone died who they dearly love. And mine did too. My mother died 2 years ago and left me alone. But nevertheless, I have you.
I went to see her, and she had this black spot on her foot. I said, "Sister, what is that?" And she said, "I don't know." I said, "Sister, go see about that, please."
Their arm hurt them. That's going to happen. But there is a divine power. I believe it. I don't know about you, but I got to believe it because I was raised that way. I sing this song. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, and let me stand. I'm tired, you done worked so hard, and I'm weak. My body is worn. Oh, yes. But I got to go anyhow. Through the storm.
She wouldn't listen to anybody. So the next thing, foot started turning black. Then she did have to go to the doctor. Then they found out they had to cut a leg off.
Just the same.
Sometimes she would call me and say, "Sister, please come to see me." And I would say, "All right, I'm coming." But the last few months I didn't go because, Russell was acting like he didn't want nobody taking over from him.
When I went over to see her and said she was in the bed and she would say, "Where's Russell?" I said, "Downstairs." And she would say, "He's asking you about shows, right?" And I said, "No, he didn't say anything." He said, "Yes, he is. He wants to know if I'm going back." She said, "And I'm going back. But I'm not going to tell anybody when I'm coming back. But I am coming back." But she never did.
My body is all suffering in pain. Whoa, yes. no one to call on. Hear my cry, hear my call. Please hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand. Whoa, precious Lord, lead me on.
Rosetta's funeral was very quiet. It wasn't any big thing. It was no elaborate funeral, I can tell you that.
The church was half full, and Rosetta looked the best I had seen her in years. Marie Knight, her old partner, she made Rosetta up. She took care of her coiffure, of her makeup, of how the fabrics looked, and made her as glamorous as possible. She looked a star.
I think I said she would sing until you cried, and then she would sing until you danced for joy. She kept the church alive and the saints rejoicing.
Down at the river, I'll stand. Guide my feet, please hold my trembling hand, and take my hand. Oh, precious Lord, lead me on.
In 2008, some 35 years after Rosetta's death, the governor of Pennsylvania declared that henceforth the 11th of January will be known as Sister Rosetta Tharpe Day.
Up above my head, up above my head, I hear music in the air. I hear music in the air. Now up above my head, up above my head, you know I hear music in the air. I hear music in the air. Up above my head, up above my head, I hear music in the air. I hear music in the air. And I really do believe, yes, I really do believe that there's a heaven somewhere, heaven somewhere.